So these can be useful controls because they often arise in decentralized firms where subordinates or business unit managers have certain decision rights, and they can choose how to make decisions and how best to achieve the outcomes that are specified by managers. Then we have action controls. So action controls don't specify an outcome, although action controls are still intended to achieve a certain outcome. But they do so by specifying what to do or what not to do, the actual actions or behaviors that individuals should or should not do. So behavioral constraints are those that restrict individuals from doing certain things. So like a lock on a door is a behavioral constraint. It permits certain people to enter and others not to enter. A lot of our cybersecurity measures are essentially behavioral constraints. Pre-action reviews are controls that we put in at certain points in time. So they allow managers to review what's being done and review plans of action for the future, and managers can accept, revise, or reject those plans. Action accountability is the conventional form of action controls, and so this is where we say you need to do these steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to monitor you in doing those steps, and if you do those steps correctly, we'll reward you. So this is sort of irrespective of the outcome. So as long as you do the steps, you get rewarded or get evaluated positively. So it's not dependent on the outcome, it's dependent on what you do. The organization is specifying what you do because they expect that to be the best way to achieve an outcome. And then there's a redundancy. So redundancy is about doing the same thing more than once. So we might then think, well, why should we do anything more than once? If we do it once, if we do it well, then that should be sufficient. Well, redundancy matters because the task is typically done by separate people. So it's not the same person doing the same task twice, it's different people. And that provides a level of action control because the second person or the other person is monitoring also what the first person has done. So if the first person has missed doing something or hasn't done it correctly, the second person can identify those errors. It's also extremely important when there's critical or high risk, or there's incidents that may have critical or high risk outcomes. So for instance, at a nuclear power plant, the likelihood of a critical incident is extremely low. And nuclear, all the technology is extremely advanced these days. But if we get something wrong, the outcomes can be catastrophic. So it's worthwhile having redundancy in those situations simply to increase the probability that those outcomes don't arise, even if the probability is small in the first place. So we have the focus on the outcomes, focus on the behaviors, and then we have focus on the inputs. So inputs are the people, their values, their skills that come into the organization. So here we can focus on personnel controls. Personnel controls are selecting and allocating individuals. So we select them into the firm. So we do interviews, we screen their CVs. Sometimes you do behavioral tests and multiple choice quizzes when you go into a firm. And they try and identify you as being a good fit for the firm or not. Then they allocate you to a job and give you responsibilities that fit you and provide you training to give you the appropriate, any additional skills that you need. And then there's the provision of resources, so ensuring that you have the right technology and other resources that you need in order to complete your role. Cultural controls relate to reinforcing or socializing people into certain values of the organization. So we can select individuals with the right values, but we can also reinforce those values through belief statements, mission statements in the firm, socialization practices such as the Friday night drinks or going out for social events, team building activities, moving people, rotating people in the organization. So one role of grad programs is to identify where you might like to work, but it's also a way of helping you to get a sense of organizational values that sit in different departments in the firm. Group-based rewards are one of the most explicit ways of doing this. The intention here is not that it motivates you to work harder, because a group, if you're at the lowest entry of the organization, what you do doesn't really have much then there's also behavioral consequences that tend to be unintended or, if known, hopefully don't outweigh the benefits to a control. So we learn about behavioral displacement, gamesmanship, operating delays, and negative attitudes. So behavioral displacement is, for instance, that we emphasize profitability or revenue in generating sales, but we also want individuals to focus on thinking about innovations. But if we only incentivize sales or profitability, the types of innovations that we're going to do are going to be very short-term focused. So we have this behavioral displacement. So we want people to do multiple things, but we incentivize on only a few of those, and then we'll find out that the things that we also want aren't being done. Gamesmanship is where we actually try and manage the results of a performance measure. So again, one of the best case examples that we've had is Fit Food, where they had a lot of gamesmanship in order to try and improve the sales or profit figure for a particular period, shipping out inventory that wasn't that customers didn't request, giving large discounts to move more inventory this quarter, which would have negative consequences for future performance of the firm. Operating delays are simply an increase in time to make decisions or take actions. So for instance, pre-action reviews can be very effective means of deciding which projects to further invest in, but they also increase the time to make a decision. So if we need to make a decision quickly to beat our competitors, any control arrangement that put in place to increase the level of monitoring is going to slow that process down. And then there's negative attitudes. So certain controls tend to be viewed more negatively than others. So I have that example where I stood behind one of you, watching you do work for a little bit. If that's just momentary, maybe you don't think much about it, but if I am constantly, day after day, involving myself in viewing exactly what you're doing, you're probably going to develop negative feelings towards me as a manager. So sometimes we can have perfect controls, but we don't use them because of the negative other emotional and cognitive implications that those controls can have. Now we haven't talked about this much in the subject, but there's also a final one called application costs, and these are costs that arise as we change over time. Our organization gets bigger, we face stronger competition, or things change in our environment. There's a need to adjust our control systems. Certain controls are easier to adapt. Then we learned a little bit about this idea that there's no one best control system or management control practice. That organizations vary in the way that they use control practices. Otherwise, this whole subject would simply be about, okay, these are the best things that you need to do when you go out there and work. But we can't say that. It's impossible for me to tell you exactly what firm A or firm B or firm C they should control, because there's so many different factors that influence the effectiveness of those controls. But we did think about a variety of things that do generally influence the types of controls that can be better or worse. So larger organizations tend to be more decentralized, more results-based controls. If there's a lot of environmental uncertainty, it makes it difficult to set targets. Strategy of the firm, hence, will influence performance measures that we use. So if it's cost leadership, we're going to be emphasizing efficiency and cost reduction. If it's a differentiator or innovation-led firm, we're going to be emphasizing different types of performance measures, and we're going to use them in different ways. Then there's other factors, technology, culture, other things that shape the context of an organization that are important for thinking about which controls are going to be most effective. Then we learned about performance measures. So as accountants, this is where our natural domain, thinking about how to measure something and use it for assessing performance. So in financial accounting, it's about assessing adherence to regulations and assessing or having comparable performance across firms. Inside the firm, we're concerned about measuring our own performance against our own standards or against targets or benchmarks that we determine ourselves. But there's generally